The murderer used the sound of fireworks as a cover. They shoot innocent people indiscriminately. Even those who stayed at home were killed. The morgue was overcrowded overnight. But what's worse? Men, women and children. In the head. In the neck. In the chest. They were all killed by a single shot. This shows that the murderer's shooting skill is very good, even from the special forces. He's a champion. Pressure is quickly being put on the police. If we don't solve the case soon, the murderer will probably do it again. They found bullet marks on the glass of the victim's house. Following the laser pointer, they identified the building across the street as the shooting point. But as soon as they got there was an explosion at that location. The police quickly surrounded the building. They evacuated all the innocent people in the building, but when they rushed to the sniper site through the smoke, but they realized that the murderer had already escaped. However, this guy is very cunning. No clues or fingerprints were left at the scene. Even the head of the chain was not broken, but the strange thing is, this house doesn't belong to the murderer. Even the owner is strange. He never gave anyone a key to the house. The pressure from the government is mounting, knowing that a maniac with a high IQ and a good gun is roaming the streets, hiding in the crowd. First time on such a large scale. Next time, he could blow up the White House, but it's hard to solve the case. According to the analysis of the bullet at the scene, the murderer used an M21 sniper rifle. It's an old model from the Vietnam War. Because of its age, we can only find it manually in the military archives. But that's like looking for a needle in a haystack. It seems we have to go back to the beginning, starting with the room where the killer committed the crime. According to the investigation, there are 3 people who have been in and out of this room: the security guard, the cleaner and the decorator, but all of them have alibis. Only the decorator is a bit strange. He had the evidence to get away with it, but he was holding a baby to hide his panic. Everyone thought it was just nervousness during the statement, but he missed the key clue to solve the case. Unbeknownst to them, it was this mistake that led the murderer to commit another crime. At that moment, in another shopping mall, a strange man appeared. He would scrub himself in the public restroom. He picks up customers' leftovers like a beggar, but he only picked vegetables and not meat. The onlookers laughed at him. Even the security guards tried to stop him. They wanted to check the man's backpack, but the next thing you know, when the police arrived, they were shocked. Bodies were strewn all over the place. It was horrible. Everyone in the mall was dead, but the murder was so blatant, there was no trace of the murderer on the surveillance cameras because he wore a hat and didn't show his face the whole time. When the police were at their wits' end, a policewoman in the shower suddenly had a flash of insight. Looking at the crumbling ceiling, she realized that the decorator must be hiding something. She immediately went to the decorator to interrogate him. After learning the serious consequences of harboring the murderer, the remodeler finally confessed. He had contracted out the work to another worker, Dean. He described Dean as being unusual. He didn't socialize well. He always wore a hat over his face, and most importantly, he never ate meat or dairy. It seemed like Dean was the one who did it. I didn't realize that my boss wouldn't report the murderer to the police. He took the policewoman to the murderer's mother's house. The old lady insisted that her son didn't live here, but the policewoman saw 2 glasses outside the window and men's clothes on the drying rack, and not far away was a warehouse. She immediately alerted her boss with a look, but just as he was about to take precautions, but at the same moment he pulled out his gun. He was shot in the head and died. The policewoman was scared out of her wits. The old lady yelled at her to stay put. As soon as her son sensed that he was being threatened, he's gonna shoot her right away. The only way to let him know you're gonna help him is to let him know you're gonna help him, and let the old lady search her gun. I could tell she didn't want her son to get in over his head. She walked to the warehouse with the gun. She yelled at the policewoman that she had no power. She told her son to surrender, or he'd die with her, and then she shot herself. Dean walked out of the warehouse. Step by step, he approached the house, only to see the door open a little bit. In the face of this mysterious cold-blooded killer, the policewoman was already in tears.